Hello, and welcome back to another thoughtful episode of Super English Talks. I'm really happy you're here with me today. Let's start this episode slowly, calmly, and honestly. There is something special about the beginning of a new year. Even when our daily life looks the same, something inside us feels different. The calendar changes, and suddenly our mind becomes quieter. At the same time, our thoughts become louder. When you press play on an episode of Code Your English, I want you to feel like you are entering a quiet place, a peaceful place, a space where you can breathe deeply, slow down, and listen to yourself, a place where you can reconnect with the part of you that you often ignore. So, welcome. I'm truly glad you're here. Today, we are talking about a topic that is personal, but also universal. Something everyone feels at some point in life. Don't waste another year. This is not a scary warning. It is not meant to make you feel guilty. It is a gentle invitation. An invitation to look closely at how you live your life, how you grow, and how easily time passes without us noticing. When we think about wasting a year, we often imagine something big, a huge failure, a serious mistake, or a year where nothing happens at all. But real life is usually different. Most years are not wasted in loud or dramatic ways. They are lost quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. A year is often lost through small delays, through hesitation, through habits we never question. We delay important decisions. We ignore our inner voice because it feels uncomfortable. We repeat old thinking patterns because they feel safe, even when they no longer help us. Sometimes, without realizing it, we live on autopilot. Day after day, week after week. We tell ourselves, I'll start soon. Maybe next week. Maybe next month. And suddenly, a whole year is gone. Not because of one big mistake, but because of many small moments we didn't notice. So before we continue, I want to ask you something. Not as a test. Not as a challenge. Just as a moment of reflection. What did last year teach you about yourself? Not only what you achieved, not only what you failed to do, but what did you learn about? Your strengths, your fears, your emotions, your ability to keep going when things were hard. How did you change inside? And just as importantly, what stayed the same? This question is not here to create pressure. It is here to create awareness. Because awareness gives clarity. And clarity helps us move forward with purpose. As you listen to this episode, think of it as a quiet conversation. A conversation between you and yourself. My voice is here to guide you, but the answers come from inside you. My goal is to help you think deeply, but also act practically. To be honest with your emotions, but also realistic about your choices. So take a slow breath. Relax your body. Settle into this moment. Together, we will explore what it truly means to not waste another year and how you can shape the next 12 months with intention, courage, and self-understanding. Now, let's talk about something important. The hidden cost of waiting. When we think about change, we often tell ourselves we are waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for perfect timing. Waiting for the day when everything finally feels ready. But waiting has a cost. And often, we don't see it. On the surface, waiting sounds reasonable. It sounds smart. After all, who doesn't want to begin something new when they feel ready, confident, and prepared? That idea makes sense. But there is a quiet truth many of us don't notice. Waiting for the right time can slowly turn into a habit. Not a logical habit, but a psychological one. It becomes our default way of living. Waiting feels safe. Waiting feels comfortable. Waiting doesn't ask us to be brave. And because it feels comfortable, we repeat it. Over time, comfort can turn into a cage. From the outside, it looks harmless. But on the inside, it quietly limits us. A big part of this habit comes from limiting beliefs. These are the small stories we tell ourselves again and again. We repeat them so often that we stop questioning them. Maybe you've said, I'm not ready yet. I need more experience. What if I fail? What if people judge me? These thoughts feel protective. They make us feel like we are avoiding pain, embarrassment, or disappointment. But in reality, they do something else. They create emotional heaviness, a kind of inner weight. This weight makes even small actions feel difficult. The mind becomes busy thinking about problems that might never happen. And in doing so, it forgets something very important. It forgets your ability to learn, to adapt, to grow. Fear slowly begins to control decisions. Not loudly, not obviously, quietly. Many of our daily choices are driven by fear, even when we don't realize it. If you stop and think for a moment, you may see how this shows up in your life. Maybe it's staying in a job that no longer excites you. Not because you love it, but because looking for something new feels uncertain. Maybe it's avoiding an important conversation with someone you care about. You delay it because you fear conflict, rejection, or emotional discomfort. Or maybe it's a personal dream you've been postponing for years. A book you wanted to write. A course you wanted to take. A skill you promised yourself you would learn someday. Each time you delay, the emotional cost grows. The longer you wait, the heavier the idea becomes. It starts to feel bigger than it really is. As if unrealized potential slowly piles up inside you. The most surprising part is this: we rarely notice this happening while it's happening. Waiting becomes automatic. We say things like, "Next month will be better. After the holidays. When life calms down. When I feel more confident." These sentences feel harmless. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, how many months of your life disappeared inside those words? How many opportunities quietly passed while you were preparing for a moment that never actually arrived? And here is an even deeper question. How much of your daily behavior is guided by clear intention? And how much is simply driven by habit? When you reflect honestly, you may begin to see the hidden cost. Waiting doesn't just slow your progress. It slowly shapes how you see yourself. Each postponed decision teaches your mind a message. Change is dangerous. Risk is unsafe. Dreams can wait forever. But deep down, you know that isn't true. Time moves forward whether we feel ready or not. The days keep passing. The years keep moving. So the real question becomes, do we move with time? Or do we allow time to move without us? Now, let me ask you something. Not to pressure you. Not to judge you. Just to help you look inward with honesty. What part of your life have you been quietly postponing, even though you know it matters? And what would happen if you stopped waiting for the perfect moment? What if you allowed yourself to begin imperfectly right now? You might discover something important. You might realize that the cost of waiting has been much higher than the cost of trying. One of the strongest forces shaping our lives is something we rarely notice. It is the internal dialogue inside our minds. This is the quiet voice that talks to us all day long. It comments on our choices. It explains our fears. It gives reasons to act or reasons to stop. This voice runs quietly in the background. So quietly that we often don't even realize it is there. Because it feels familiar, we accept it as truth. We don't stop to ask where it came from. We don't ask whether it actually helps us grow. In many ways, the mind is a storyteller. And sometimes, that storyteller chooses safety instead of possibility. It creates excuses to protect us. It points out dangers to keep us cautious. It whispers warnings that sound like wisdom, but often come from fear. This internal dialogue can be very subtle. You might tell yourself, "It's not the right time. I'll try when things calm down. I'm not the kind of person who succeeds at that." These sentences sound harmless. They even sound reasonable. But underneath them, there is often something deeper. A desire to avoid failure. A fear of criticism. A wish to stay comfortable. The intention behind these thoughts is often protection. But the result is usually limitation. They limit your movement. They limit your creativity. They limit your willingness to try something new. This is a kind of self-sabotage. But it feels logical because it is disguised as careful thinking. Sometimes the mind feels like a quiet room full of whispers. One whisper says, "Wait." Another says, "People will judge you." Another says, "You need more time, more skill, more perfection." If you are not aware, these whispers blend together. They begin to sound like one voice, your own voice. And when that happens, it becomes very hard to see the truth. You are not always responding to reality. You are often responding to old mental patterns. These patterns may have formed years ago. They may no longer match who you are today, or who you want to become. Many of these patterns begin early in life. They are shaped by past experiences, by culture, by moments when you felt hurt, embarrassed, or unsafe. For example, if you once failed at something important, your mind may create a rule: don't try again unless you are completely ready. If someone criticized you strongly, your mind may decide it's safer to stay quiet. It's safer not to take risks. Over time, these rules become automatic. They work below the surface. They guide your choices without you noticing. Psychologists call these mental shortcuts. Sometimes they help us, but often they keep us stuck in old emotional places. The challenge and the opportunity is to notice these patterns before they control your actions. Mindfulness is not only about slow breathing. It is not only about being calm. It is about listening to your thoughts. When a familiar excuse appears, can you pause and ask, is this thought protecting me, or is it limiting me? When a harsh idea appears, like, I'm not good enough, or people will judge me, can you step back and watch it? Can you see it like a cloud passing in the sky, instead of a permanent truth carved in stone? When you begin to notice your internal dialogue, something powerful happens. You create space. Space between the thought and your reaction. Space between fear and action. And in that space, you gain freedom. You gain the ability to choose. You can decide whether the whisper deserves your attention, or whether it is just an old echo from a past version of yourself. This awareness does not happen overnight. It takes patience. It takes practice. This awareness is the key to breaking patterns that have quietly shaped your life for many years. So pause for a moment and think. What is your mind whispering to you these days? Are these quiet thoughts helping you grow? Or are they feeding fear? Are they pushing you forward? Or are they keeping you safe but unhappy in the same place? If you listen carefully and honestly, you may realize something important. Many of your thoughts are not facts. They are habits. They are old mental routines you have repeated for a long time. And once you see them clearly, you can begin to change them. You can change the conversation inside your own mind. And that change, more than anything else, is the beginning of real transformation. It is the beginning of a year you will not waste. Momentum versus stagnation. Why action matters more than perfection. One of the biggest misunderstandings we carry into adult life is this idea: I must feel completely ready before I take action. We believe preparation comes first, then confidence, and only after that, action. But real life rarely works this way. More often, confidence comes after action, not before it. When we compare momentum and stagnation, the difference becomes very clear. Small, imperfect action creates movement. Waiting creates stillness. And stillness, over time, turns into feeling stuck. You do not need a perfect plan to begin. You do not need everything figured out. You need one small step. A step that is simple enough that your mind cannot easily stop you, but meaningful enough to change your energy. There is a reason this works. When you take even a tiny action towards something you want, your brain notices. It begins to see you differently. It starts to see you as someone who is moving, someone who is capable, someone who is not stuck. This creates resilience, the ability to continue, to adjust, to keep going even when things are hard. Action creates more action. Movement creates more movement. The more you move, the easier it becomes to stay in motion. Stagnation works in the opposite way. The longer you wait, the heavier everything feels. The task grows bigger in your mind. Fear becomes stronger. Your belief in yourself becomes weaker. Waiting may feel safe, but it slowly drains your inner strength. You can see this clearly in everyday life. Think about learning a language, maybe English. If you wait for perfection, you may never speak. You may fear making mistakes. You may stay silent. But the people who improve the fastest are not perfect speakers. They speak even when they feel uncomfortable. They make mistakes. They forget words. They say things incorrectly. And they keep speaking anyway. Because of that, they build momentum. Each conversation makes the next one easier. Each mistake becomes useful information, not shame. Slowly, they become fluent. Not only in the language, but in confidence. The same idea applies to habits. Maybe you want to read more, exercise, meditate, wake up earlier. If you wait for motivation, you may wait forever. But if you choose a very small action, something simple, everything changes. Read 2 pages. Take a 5-minute walk. Meditate for 1 minute. These actions may seem small, but they break the mental barrier. They teach your brain one important lesson: I can move. Once a habit exists, even in a tiny form, it becomes easier to continue. Perfection is not required. Consistency is. And consistency always begins with a single step. This idea also shows up in relationships. Sometimes relationships don't break because of big fights. They fade because of small silences. You wait to send a message. You wait to apologize. You wait to say what matters. Meanwhile, the distance grows. But one small action can change everything. One message. One honest sentence. One attempt to reconnect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Because action, even imperfect action, creates movement. Imperfect action, even when it feels uncomfortable, often heals more than spending hundreds of hours waiting to feel ready. Waiting for the perfect emotional state rarely helps. Action does. What all these examples show us is something very simple and very powerful. Real change does not usually begin with big, dramatic decisions. It begins with small acts of courage. This kind of courage is quiet. From the outside, no one may even notice it. But inside you, it creates a strong shift. It might be sending an email you've been avoiding, writing the first paragraph of a project, speaking English for 5 minutes with a friend, stepping outside for a short walk. These actions seem small, but they send a clear message to your mind. I am moving. And once your mind believes you are moving, everything begins to change. Your relationship with fear changes. Your relationship with effort changes. Your relationship with yourself changes. So ask yourself gently, are you waiting for perfection? Or are you willing to begin imperfectly? Are you waiting for courage to suddenly appear? Or are you ready to create courage through action? Momentum does not come from thinking. It does not come from planning. It does not come from dreaming. Momentum comes from doing. Even doing something very small. And that small action can be the spark that stops another year from quietly slipping away. Revisiting priorities. What truly matters this year? At some point in life, we all need to pause. We need to look closely at the structure of our lives. Not just our daily routines. Not just our long to-do lists. But the deeper structure. The one that shapes who we are becoming. Revisiting priorities is part of this process. It requires honesty. It requires self-observation. And it requires courage. Courage to ask difficult questions. And courage to listen to the answers without running away. When you think about the year ahead, ask yourself more than just, what do I want to achieve? Also ask, what truly matters to me? Think about your values, relationships, personal growth, emotional well-being. Many of us live in constant tension between what is urgent and what is important. Urgent things are loud. They demand attention. They create pressure. Emails, deadlines, obligations, daily routines. They fill our days so completely that we rarely stop to ask, is this really worth so much of my time and energy? Important things are different. They are quiet. They do not shout. They wait patiently for us to notice them. Your health, your relationships, your personal development, your creative dreams. These things do not demand immediate action in the same way. But when we ignore them for too long, something happens. we begin to feel empty, disconnected, unsatisfied, and no amount of urgent work can fill that emptiness. This is one of the main ways a year disappears. We give too much power to what is urgent, and too little attention to what is important. To revisit your priorities, begin with your values. These are the principles that feel meaningful to you, even if you don't talk about them every day. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to become? What qualities do I admire in others? Which parts of my life feel true to me? Which parts feel shaped by someone else's expectations? Sometimes, without realizing it, we chase goals that are not truly ours. We follow careers our families approve of. We choose lifestyles society praises. We copy habits we see online. And we do this without asking, does this really reflect who I am? When our goals are not connected to our values, something feels off. Even when we succeed, even when we achieve what we planned, we feel disconnected. That feeling is not failure. It is a signal inviting you to realign your life, to choose intentionally, and to shape a year that truly belongs to you. Now, think about your goals for this year. Not the goals you feel you should write down. Not the ones that sound good to other people. Think about the goals that truly matter to your heart. The goals that make you feel alive. The goals that help you feel grounded. The goals that give your life a sense of purpose. Maybe you want to improve your physical health. Not to be perfect, but to feel stronger and more energetic. Maybe you want to build deeper friendships. Or learn a new skill. Or save money so you feel more secure. Maybe you want to improve your English. Or find a career path that feels meaningful, not mechanical. These goals do not need to be dramatic. They only need to be honest. And honesty is often more powerful than ambition. Responsibilities matter too. Every adult carries responsibilities. Family, work, money, community. These responsibilities are real and they deserve respect. But responsibilities should not become excuses to forget yourself. There is a difference between doing what life asks of you and giving up your entire sense of self to meet expectations. When you revisit your priorities, you give yourself a chance to balance both. Responsibility and self-growth do not have to fight each other. They can exist together. As you think about the year ahead, try asking yourself a few gentle questions. What would make this year feel meaningful, even if nothing extraordinary happened? Which habits or commitments drain your energy? And which ones nourish you? Are you spending most of your time reacting to life? Or are you slowly designing the life you want? And maybe the most important question of all, what is one thing you want to prioritize this year that you have been neglecting for too long? These questions are not meant to overwhelm you. They are meant to help you listen. To listen to the deeper part of your life. The part you often ignore when you are busy just surviving. When your priorities are unclear, your time is easily taken by things that do not truly matter. But when your priorities are intentional, something changes. Even small choices begin to align with your values. And that alignment, living from truth instead of habit, is what gives a year real meaning. So pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me this year? If you can answer that honestly, even in one simple sentence, you are already much closer to a meaningful, intentional year than before. Letting go. The power of release and redirection. At some point on every meaningful journey, moving forward is not only about adding new things. It is also about letting go. Letting go gently, thoughtfully, without judging yourself. Many of us carry emotional weight without realizing how heavy it has become. Old dreams that once excited us, but no longer reflect who we are today. Obligations we accepted long ago, out of habit or pressure. Identities we created to feel safe, accepted, or admired, even if they no longer match our true selves. This emotional clutter takes up mental space. It drains our energy, and it quietly blocks growth. Letting go does not mean quitting. It means releasing what no longer serves your growth. Psychologists call this psychological flexibility. It is the ability to adjust and adapt when life changes. Instead of holding tightly to old beliefs or emotional scripts, it means understanding something very important. You do not have to stay the same person you were last year, or 5 years ago, or at any point in the past. Psychological flexibility allows you to change your inner story. To say, I can think differently. I can act differently. I can choose differently. This is a quiet kind of courage. It may not look impressive from the outside, but inside, it feels deeply freeing. Perfectionism often sounds like a good thing. After all, who doesn't want to do things well? But very often, perfectionism is not about excellence. It is about fear. Fear of criticism. Fear of failure. Fear of not being good enough. Perfectionism creates impossible standards, and then it punishes you for not reaching them. It slows your progress. It blocks creativity. It replaces joy with anxiety. Letting go of perfectionism does not mean lowering your standards. It means allowing yourself to be human. It means making space for mistakes, for learning, for growth. When you stop demanding perfection, something important happens. You begin to move. Another powerful thing to let go of is self-blame for past mistakes. Many people carry regret quietly, like invisible stones in their pockets. They replay old failures, old decisions, old moments of shame, sometimes for years. But holding on to guilt does not fix the past. It only limits the present. Self-forgiveness is an act of kindness toward yourself. It is saying, I did the best I could with the understanding I had at that time. When you forgive yourself, you recover energy. Energy you were using to judge and punish yourself. That energy can now be used for learning, growth, and change. Another important shift is how you see failure. Failure is not proof that you are weak or incapable. It is information. It shows you what worked, what didn't, and what needs to change. Every failure contains lessons, data, perspective. When your mindset becomes more flexible, you begin to see something clearly. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the path. When you stop believing that failure defines you, you gain freedom. Freedom to try again. And again. And again. Without the heavy emotional weight that once held you back. Letting go is not dramatic. It is gentle. It is like opening your hand after holding something tightly for too long. It is saying goodbye to older versions of yourself. Versions that belong to a different season of your life. And when you release those old layers, you create space. Space for new priorities, new strength, new possibilities, deeper self-respect. You stop pulling the past into the future. Instead, you allow the future to unfold with clarity. So take a quiet moment and reflect. What in your life feels heavy because it no longer fits who you are becoming? What belief, habit, or identity have you outgrown, but still hold on to? And if you loosened your grip just a little, how much lighter would you feel? Letting go is not losing. It is aligning. It is choosing to direct your energy toward what truly matters now. And in that release, you make room for a year that feels open, intentional, and emotionally free. Designing the next 12 months with intention. There is something deeply powerful about standing at the beginning of a new year, pausing, and asking yourself not, what should I do? But, what do I want to create? This question shifts everything. It moves you from obligation to intention, from habit to choice, from survival to meaning. Life is unpredictable, and real growth must leave space for that. Designing with intention is about choosing a direction. It is about choosing an inner guide, something that helps you decide how to use your time, energy, and attention. When you live with intention, you are not forcing the year to follow your plans. You are choosing to show up with clarity and purpose, even when things change around you. Intentional planning begins with honesty, not fantasy, not wishful thinking. Ask yourself, where am I right now? How do I feel emotionally? How stable am I financially? How satisfied am I with my work or studies? How connected do I feel to myself and others? Which patterns keep repeating in my life? And which patterns am I finally ready to stop? This kind of honesty is not about judging yourself. It is about seeing clearly. Intentional planning also requires compassion. You are not a machine. You are a human being. You cannot change everything overnight. And you don't need to. Real change happens slowly, through small, thoughtful choices made again and again. This is where choosing a theme for the year becomes powerful. Instead of setting many strict goals, you choose one guiding idea. A theme works like a compass. It helps you stay aligned, even when daily life pulls you in different directions. For example, imagine choosing the theme connection. This means you approach the year with the intention to listen more carefully, communicate more honestly, spend time with people who matter. Or imagine choosing discipline. This does not mean being hard on yourself. It means learning to follow through, even when motivation is low. It means doing what matters, not what feels easy. A theme like courage might mean taking emotional risks, speaking honestly, applying for a job you've been avoiding, starting a project that scares you but excites you. These themes are not rules. They're invitations. They help you focus without trapping you in unrealistic expectations. When you design a meaningful year, it also helps to choose one important shift. Not 10 goals. Not 20 habits. Not a complete reinvention. Just one shift. One change that feels realistic and meaningful. Maybe it is speaking English for 15 minutes every day. Maybe it is taking your health seriously for the first time in years. Maybe it is reconnecting with someone you've slowly drifted away from. Maybe it is finally listening to the creative part of you that has been quiet for too long. One shift may sound small, but when you follow it with intention, it can change everything. Small changes create ripple effects, and those ripples can shape your entire year. As you think about the next 12 months, ask yourself a few gentle questions. What do I want to feel more of this year? And what do I want to feel less of? Which personal qualities do I want to strengthen? Patience? Confidence? Calm? Courage? Which relationships need more attention? And which ones need healthier boundaries? What kinds of experiences do I want to invite into my life? And maybe the most powerful question of all, if I live this year with intention instead of habit, how different would my life look at the end of it? Designing your year with intention does not require perfection. It is a quiet, steady practice. A way of checking in with yourself. A way of keeping your inner compass aligned. Even when life becomes uncertain. Even when plans change. You cannot control everything that happens around you. Life will surprise you. Plans will change. Some things will be out of your hands. But you can always choose how you show up. And those choices, small, consistent, and honest, are what shape a meaningful year. So take a quiet moment. Slow down. Breathe. Choose a theme. Choose a direction. Choose one small shift that truly matters. When you do this, you step into the new year differently. Not with pressure, but with presence. Not with fear, but with clarity. Not just with plans, but with purpose. A look at your future self. When you think about your future self, it is easy to imagine them as someone far away. Someone more confident, more organized, more finished. As if one day, that version of you will appear by magic. But the truth is much more empowering. Your future self is not separate from you. Your future self is created by the choices you make today. So wherever you are right now, pause for a moment. Let your body relax. Let your mind soften. Now imagine yourself 1 year from today. Not 10 years. Not a lifetime. Just 12 months. Close enough to feel real. Long enough to change everything. Imagine walking into a room. Your future self is there. Notice the details. Their posture. Their energy. The way they hold themselves. Do they seem lighter? Clearer? More grounded? Or do they feel heavy? Tired? Still carrying the same worries you feel today? Let your imagination answer gently, without judgment. Now focus on the first version. The future you who changed. This version did not transform because of luck. There was no dramatic moment. No sudden miracle. They changed because of small decisions. Daily choices. Quiet discipline. Honest reflection. They chose courage on days when comfort felt easier. They paused instead of panicking. They realigned instead of giving up. And when you look into their eyes, you notice something. A calm confidence. A quiet trust in themselves. This is the look of someone who stopped negotiating with their own potential. They know what matters. And they protect it. They speak with clarity. Not because life is perfect, but because they stopped waiting for perfect conditions to begin. Stay with this image for a moment. Let it feel real. Because it is real. This future self is possible. Because you are possible. Now gently shift your attention to the other version. The future you who did not change. Not because they were lazy. Not because they were weak. But because of habit. Because of fear. Because they believed there would always be a better time to start later. Picture them sitting across from you. Maybe they look a little older, but not very different. The same unfinished conversations. The same avoided risks. The same dreams still glowing quietly in the background. Untouched. This version is not a failure. They are not something to criticize. They are simply the natural result of inaction. They show what happens when a year passes without intention, without reflection, without the courage to interrupt old patterns. This version deserves compassion. Because many people end up here when they underestimate the power of small daily actions. Now bring both versions into focus. See them clearly, side by side, and ask yourself gently, which one feels closer to who I want to be? Which one reflects my deeper values? The ones I don't always say out loud, but feel strongly when I'm alone. This exercise is not meant to pressure you. It is meant to awaken something important. Your sense of agency. The reminder that your future is not distant or abstract. It is being shaped quietly by how you show up today, tomorrow, and the day after. Every choice, even the smallest one, is a vote for the person you are becoming. So lean into this awareness with courage. Your future self is not waiting for a miracle. They are waiting for your participation. They are waiting for you to notice when avoidance pretends to be logic, when hesitation disguises itself as being realistic. They are waiting for you to move even when the movement feels imperfect. And in that realization, there is strength. A quiet, steady strength. Because responsibility is not a burden. It is a deeply human privilege. You have the ability to influence your life. You have the power to interrupt stagnation. You have the right to become who you know you can be. So take one more breath. Let the image of your future self settle inside you. Whether that image feels hopeful, unclear, or slightly uncomfortable, treat it as an invitation. A gentle call toward intentional living, toward courage, toward presence. Which version of you will be there to receive the next year? As we come to the end of this episode, take a slow moment to pause. Let everything settle. Imagine a glass of water that has been shaken. At first, the surface is restless. But if you wait quietly, it becomes still again. Allow your thoughts to do the same. Over the last few minutes, you have moved through ideas meant to gently shift the way you live. Ideas that invite you to think differently, act differently, and show up with more intention in your own life. We talked about how waiting can quietly shape our days. How our inner voice affects the choices we make. How imperfect action, even when it feels uncomfortable, is what creates real momentum. We looked at priorities. At letting go of what no longer serves you. At designing the next 12 months with clarity instead of pressure. And finally, you met your future self. You saw what could be possible. And you also saw what might remain the same if nothing changes. These ideas are not here to overwhelm you. They are here to ground you. They are reminders that life begins to expand the moment you take responsibility for your direction. Before you return to your day, choose one intentional action you can take this week. Just one. It does not need to be big or impressive. It could be making a phone call you've been avoiding, opening a document and writing the first paragraph, practicing English speaking for 10 minutes, setting a boundary you've delayed, taking one small step toward your health or well-being. What matters is not the size of the action. What matters is the energy behind it. The energy of choosing movement over drifting. The energy of alignment instead of inertia. When you make even one conscious choice, you send a message to yourself. Change is not something far away. Change is something I participate in. That small act builds confidence. It builds self-trust. And it creates forward motion. If you ever feel lost or disconnected, return to this episode. Listen again. As a C1 learner, repeated listening helps you absorb more than ideas. It helps you feel the rhythm of English, the pauses, the tone, the natural flow. You can try shadowing parts of the episode. Repeat sentences out loud. Pause and imitate the speaker's voice. Notice the stress and intonation. Growth does not happen through passive listening. It happens through deliberate practice. Use this episode not only as inspiration, but as a tool. Something steady you can return to whenever you need clarity or grounding. And remember this. Personal growth is not loud. It is not a performance. It is not a race. It is a quiet, ongoing conversation with yourself. It is the willingness to reflect, to adjust, to redirect, and to try again when things become messy or uncertain. You do not need to plan the entire year ahead. You only need to stay connected to the next step, the next choice, the next honest moment, the next opportunity to act instead of retreat. Growth is built through these small moments, one after another, slowly shaping a life that feels more intentional and more aligned with who you truly are. So, as you step back into your day, carry one final thought with you. When doubt appears, when hesitation takes over, when fear whispers, remember this. Your next year begins with your next choice. Make it count. And many of us pause at this time of year, sometimes without even noticing it. We reflect on our lives. We think about what we did, what we avoided, what we promised ourselves, what we still want to change. The new year does not magically fix anything, but it creates a moment where reflection feels natural. In January, motivation often appears suddenly. People talk about goals and fresh starts. Gyms become crowded. New notebooks are clean and empty. You hear phrases like, "This year will be different." It's interesting because nothing external has truly changed. We are still the same people, with the same habits, the same strengths, the same weaknesses. Yet emotionally, something shifts. The idea of a fresh start gives us permission to hope again. It allows us to believe that change is possible, even if we failed before. But this motivation is not always comfortable. Along with hope, there is pressure. Along with excitement, there is fear. We want to grow, but we are afraid of repeating old patterns. This is why intention matters more than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Intention stays. Many people begin the year carrying quiet questions inside themselves. Questions like, what if I try again and fail again? What if I don't have enough discipline? What if I'm asking too much for myself? These thoughts are not always loud or clear. Sometimes they sit quietly in the background. But even when we don't notice them, they influence how we feel and how we act. Expectations play a big role here. At the start of a new year, we are not only dreaming about the future. We are also judging ourselves. We compare who we are now with who we think we should be. We imagine a future version of ourselves who is more confident, more focused, more successful. This image can be motivating, but it can also feel heavy. So pause for a moment and ask yourself honestly, do I feel hopeful right now? Or do I feel pressured to change as fast as possible? This mix of emotions, hope, motivation, fear, pressure, is very human. And you are not alone in feeling it. All around the world, people are experiencing the same thing. Some are writing long lists of resolutions. Others are thinking quietly, I just want to do a little better than last year. And some are already telling themselves not to expect too much, because disappointment feels familiar. Wherever you are emotionally, it is okay. You do not need to have everything figured out today. As we continue, try not to focus on perfection or big promises. Instead, stay with the feeling of a new beginning. Notice what you are thinking about. Notice what you are hoping for. And ask yourself one gentle question. What does a new beginning really mean for me right now in my real life? Why we make New Year resolutions and why they matter. Let's talk about why people make New Year resolutions. This habit is deeper than simply writing a list of goals. At its core, a resolution is not about changing everything at once. It is a response to a feeling. Very often, that feeling is the quiet awareness that something in our life is not moving in the direction we want. We might feel stuck, or bored, or disconnected from our potential. So we start looking for change. Not random change, but meaningful change. Change that gives us a sense of growth and forward movement. One important reason people make resolutions is the desire for control. Life can feel unpredictable and chaotic. Many things happen without our choice. But when you set a resolution, you are choosing something. You're saying, this part of my life is in my hands. That feeling of control can be very comforting. It gives direction to your energy. It gives purpose to your actions. Even a small goal can make you feel less passive. You stop only reacting to life and start shaping it. Another reason is cultural. In many cultures, the new year represents a reset. One chapter ends. Another begins. Media, social networks, and conversations with friends and family all reinforce this idea. We see messages about fresh starts everywhere. Over time, this becomes part of how we think. When everyone around us talks about change, it becomes easier to believe that change is possible. The idea of a fresh start is powerful because it helps us separate the past from the future. Psychologically, this separation reduces guilt. Instead of saying, I always fail, we say, that was last year. The past doesn't disappear, but it feels lighter. And when the past feels lighter, action feels easier. Resolutions also matter because they give meaning to effort. Without intention, days can feel repetitive and empty. When you set a resolution, even a simple one, you give yourself a reason to try. That reason might be health, or confidence, or learning, or personal growth. Over time, these intentions shape who you become. You don't just do things. You become someone who values growth, awareness, and responsibility. At the same time, it's important to understand something important. Resolutions are not about perfection. They are about direction. You may not reach every goal exactly as planned. That's normal. But having a direction still matters. It influences the choices you make, the habits you build, the way you speak to yourself. Without direction, effort can feel pointless. With direction, even slow progress feels meaningful. So when you think about your own resolutions, don't see them as strict promises you must keep perfectly. See them as signals. They show you what matters to you right now. They reflect your values, your hopes, and your desire to live more intentionally. And that by itself is already more meaningful than any checklist could ever be. Now, let's look honestly at something many people try to avoid. Why do most New Year resolutions fail? This part is not about blaming yourself or feeling disappointed. It is about understanding reality. And understanding removes shame. When we think failure means weakness, we attack ourselves. But when we understand why something doesn't work, we gain clarity. And clarity gives us power. One of the most common reasons resolutions fail is that they are unrealistic. At the beginning of the year, motivation is high. Energy feels strong. We imagine a perfect version of ourselves. Because of this, many people set goals that sound impressive but ignore real life. For example, someone may decide to exercise every single day, completely change their diet, wake up very early, learn a new skill, and become more productive. All at the same time. These goals are not impossible, but they require a level of time, energy, and discipline that most people cannot maintain for long. When real life appears, work, stress, tiredness, motivation drops. Then the first setback feels like personal failure. Another major reason resolutions fail is all-or-nothing thinking. This mindset says, if I can't do it perfectly, there's no point doing it at all. So missing one workout becomes a reason to stop exercising completely. Eating one unhealthy meal becomes a reason to quit the diet for the whole week. This way of thinking creates heavy pressure. And pressure often leads to burnout. Instead of seeing progress as flexible, people treat it like a test. One mistake feels like failing the entire exam. But real change does not work like that. Real progress is usually slow, uneven, imperfect, sometimes uncomfortable. All or nothing thinking leaves no space for mistakes. But mistakes are a natural part of learning and growth. Many people feel disappointed not because they truly failed, but because their expectations were unrealistic from the start. Another common belief is, my resolution failed because I lost motivation. But this is often not true. Motivation is usually strong in the beginning. The real problem is the lack of systems. A system is the structure that supports your goal. It includes your routine, your environment, reminders, simple habits. Without a system, motivation has to work alone. And motivation is emotional. It changes with mood, stress, and energy. A system keeps working even when motivation is low. For example, someone wants to improve their English. In January, they feel excited. They listen to podcasts and practice speaking. But without a system, no fixed time, no clear routine, no simple plan, practice becomes irregular. Life gets busy. Pressure increases. Slowly, the habit disappears. The desire is still there, but there is no structure to support it. Then the person feels guilty and says, I failed. In reality, they were never properly supported. Another important factor is emotional burnout. When people push themselves too hard, especially at the start, they use energy faster than they can recover it. They expect fast results. When results don't appear, frustration grows. Over time, effort feels heavy instead of meaningful. Burnout is not laziness. It is often a sign of caring too much without enough balance. Now, this is very important to say clearly. Failing a resolution does not mean failing as a person. It means the approach needs adjustment. Setbacks are part of every growth process. They are information, not judgment. They show what is too much, what is not working, what needs to change. When we stop seeing broken resolutions as proof of weakness, we create space for learning. We move from self-criticism to self-awareness. And when that shift happens, resolutions stop being pressure. They become tools for understanding ourselves better. That is where real progress begins. Not with perfection, but with honesty, patience, and compassion. They often tell us to wait. They tell us to prepare more, to improve a little more, to learn a little more before we begin. And because their voice sounds reasonable, we listen to them. We don't always notice how much they are holding us back. Perfectionism usually starts from a good place. It often comes from high standards and a real desire to do things well. Wanting to do your best is not the problem. The problem begins when perfection becomes a condition for starting. When people believe they must feel confident, skilled, and ready before they act, action stops. They tell themselves, if I can't do this properly, it's better not to do it at all. Because of this belief, goals are delayed. Sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. Many people have delayed important goals because they were afraid of doing them badly, even if they don't say it out loud. Fear of failure plays a big role here. Failure doesn't just mean making mistakes. It often feels like showing our weaknesses to others or to ourselves. When we try something new, we risk discovering that we are not as capable as we hoped. That realization can feel uncomfortable. So avoiding action feels safer. If we don't start, we can still imagine success. But once we begin, imagination is replaced by reality. And reality is not always comfortable. Self-doubt makes this fear stronger. It shows up as quiet questions. What if I'm not good enough? What if others are better than me? What if I prove my own negative thoughts right? These thoughts are powerful because they feel personal and logical at the same time. They don't shout. They whisper. And slowly, they reduce our confidence. If self-doubt is not questioned, it becomes a habit. A habit of hesitation. Another common trap is waiting for the perfect moment. People say, I'll start when I have more time, when I have more energy, when I feel more confident, when I know more. But the perfect moment almost never arrives. Life stays busy. Life stays unpredictable. Life stays messy. If we wait for ideal conditions, we often wait forever. The truth is, most progress happens in imperfect moments. Tired evenings. Busy mornings. Uncertain situations. Comparison also feeds perfectionism and self-doubt. We live in a world where we constantly see other people's results, but we rarely see their struggles. When we compare our beginning to someone else's middle or end, we create unfair pressure. Our own progress starts to feel small or meaningless, even when it is real. Over time, this leads to discouragement and emotional distance from our goals. When we look at this honestly, perfectionism and self-doubt are not signs of weakness. They are signs of caring deeply. But when they control our actions, they stop growth instead of supporting it. If we believed that progress mattered more than performance, we would act differently. If we accepted that mistakes are part of learning, we would move forward with less fear. Imagine what could change if you allowed yourself to start before you felt ready. If you accepted that your first attempt does not define your potential, it only begins the process. This is where conditional thinking can help. If I start imperfectly, I can still improve. If I make mistakes, I can learn from them. These thoughts do not remove fear completely, but they reduce its power. The real danger of perfectionism and self-doubt is not failure. It is silence. It is inactivity. When nothing happens, nothing changes. But when you act, even with uncertainty, you create movement. And movement, over time, builds confidence. Not loud confidence, but quiet confidence. The kind that comes from experience. Resolutions versus identity. Who are you becoming? At this point, it helps to step back and look at resolutions differently. Instead of asking only, what do I want to do this year? Ask, who am I becoming? Goals focus on actions and results. Identity focuses on mindset, values, and long-term direction. When resolutions are only about doing, they often feel heavy and temporary. But when they are connected to identity, they begin to feel meaningful and lasting. Many people set goals like, I want to exercise more. I want to learn English. I want to be more productive. These goals describe actions, but they do not describe identity. Now imagine a small shift. Instead of only saying, I want to exercise, you begin to see yourself as a person who takes care of their health. Instead of saying, I want to learn English, you start to think of yourself as a learner who practices regularly. Instead of saying, I want to be productive, you see yourself as someone who values focus and responsibility. When identity changes, behavior follows naturally. In this way, identity works like a compass. It does not push you aggressively. It quietly guides your choices over time. Small actions play a powerful role in shaping identity. Every time you repeat a behavior, you send a message to yourself about who you are. If you read a few pages every night, you reinforce the identity of a reader. If you practice English for 10 minutes a day, you strengthen the identity of a language learner. If you go for short walks regularly, you support the identity of someone who cares about their health. These actions may feel small, but they are like votes. Each action is a vote for the person you are becoming. One vote may not feel important, but over time, many votes create a strong belief. And slowly, that identity starts to feel natural. It starts to feel believable. Many people experience this change without noticing it. After doing something consistently for a while, you may think, this is just who I am now. At that point, you don't need strong motivation every day. The behavior matches your self-image. This is why identity-based change often lasts longer than goal-based change. Goals usually have an ending. Identity does not. When a goal ends, motivation often disappears. But when identity changes, behavior continues. You don't stop because it feels right to continue. Long-term thinking is important here. When people focus only on fast results, they often feel impatient and disappointed. But identity grows slowly. It is shaped by repetition, not by dramatic moments. Your past experiences matter. You have tried. You have learned. You have failed. And you have continued. These experiences build a personal history. They create confidence. They create resilience. You are not starting from zero each year. You are continuing a story that is already in progress. There is also freedom in focusing on identity instead of outcomes. If your resolution is only about success, failure feels heavy and final. But if your resolution is about becoming a certain kind of person, setbacks lose their power. A person who values growth does not stop growing because of one bad week. A person who sees themselves as a learner does not quit because something feels difficult. Identity creates patience. It allows space for mistakes. It allows space for learning. Think of identity as a path, not a destination. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become a new person. You move in that direction step by step. Some days you walk confidently. Other days you move slowly. Sometimes you stop to rest. What matters is the direction, not the speed. When resolutions are connected to identity, they stop feeling like pressure. They start to feel like alignment. So as you think about this year, ask yourself one gentle question. What kind of person do I want to practice being today? Not perfectly. Not completely. Just honestly. Because in the end, the most powerful resolutions are not the ones you announce loudly. They are the ones you live quietly. One small action at a time. The power of small, consistent actions. Now, let's move from mindset to something very practical. Real change usually begins here. Not with dramatic decisions. Not with intense effort. But with simple behaviors repeated over time. Many people believe transformation requires high motivation and big energy. But in real life, motivation rises and falls. Energy changes. Mood changes. Consistency, however, can remain. And when consistency stays, progress follows. Even when it feels slow. One of the biggest misunderstandings about change is the idea that doing more is always better. In reality, doing something regularly is usually far more effective than doing a lot once in a while. When effort is intense but short, it often leads to exhaustion and disappointment. You push hard, feel tired, and then stop. But when effort is small and repeated, it becomes sustainable. It fits into real life. Try to think in terms of daily actions, not perfect results. Show up even when your energy is low. Especially when your energy is low. Learning English is a clear example of this. You don't become fluent by studying for 5 hours one day and then stopping for 2 weeks. Progress happens when you listen a little every day, speak a little every day, and review words again and again. Even 10 or 15 minutes can make a real difference. If it happens regularly. Don't wait for long free time. Use short moments in the morning, during a walk, or before sleep. Over weeks and months, those small minutes quietly turn into real ability. The same idea applies to health habits. Many people start the year with intense plans. Strict diets. Long workouts. Sudden lifestyle changes. At first, motivation feels strong. But the body and mind need time to adapt. When habits are too extreme, they don't last. Instead, start small. Walk a little every day. Drink more water. Sleep a bit earlier. These actions may not look impressive, but they build something very important. They build trust with yourself. And self-trust is essential for long-term change. Daily routines work the same way. You don't need to redesign your entire life to feel more focused or organized. Begin with one simple habit. Wake up at the same time. Write for 5 minutes. Plan tomorrow the night before. These routines reduce mental pressure because they remove decisions. When something becomes a habit, you don't need to argue with yourself every day. You simply do it. Time is very important here. At the beginning, progress often feels invisible. You practice. You repeat. You show up. But you don't see clear results. This stage is frustrating, and many people quit here. But slow progress is not wasted progress. It is building a foundation, just like learning a language or strengthening muscles. Improvement often appears after consistency has already done its quiet work. Be patient with time. Let time support you instead of rushing against it. Here are a few gentle reminders. Start smaller than you think you need to. Make the habit so easy that it feels almost too simple. Focus on showing up, not on doing it perfectly. If you miss a day, return the next day without guilt. Progress is not broken by one mistake. It is broken by stopping completely. Consistency is not about being strict. It is about being kind enough to continue. After a few months, you may be surprised. Not because everything changed suddenly, but because something steady has been growing. Confidence grows when actions repeat. Skills grow when practice continues. Identity grows when habits become part of daily life. Small, consistent actions may feel quiet, but their impact is powerful and long-lasting. Redefining failure, falling, learning, continuing. Now, let's change the meaning of a word that carries a lot of emotional weight. Failure. For many people, failure feels final, personal, and painful. It is often connected to shame and self-judgment. When something doesn't work, we don't think, "This plan failed." We think, "I failed." But this way of thinking is not only heavy, it is also inaccurate. If we want real, long-term change, we need to redefine failure. Instead of seeing failure as an ending, we can see it as feedback. Feedback tells us what happened, not who we are. When something doesn't work, it gives us information. It shows us what was unrealistic, what was missing, what needs adjustment. For example, if you plan to study English every morning and stop after a week, it does not mean you lack discipline. It may simply mean mornings are not the right time for you. That experience is not defeat. It is data. Many people quit not because they fail, but because they interpret failure too strongly. One missed day becomes a reason to stop completely. One bad week becomes proof that change is impossible. But what if stopping doesn't mean failing? What if it simply means pausing, adjusting, and continuing in a different way? When you change how you see failure, you make space for learning, resilience, and steady progress. And that is where real growth continues. Progress is rarely a straight line. It includes breaks. It includes slow days. It includes stopping and starting again. One of the most important skills in personal growth is the ability to restart without guilt. Guilt often appears when our expectations are too rigid. We tell ourselves, "I should be better. I should be faster. I should be more consistent." When real life does not match these expectations, guilt fills the gap. But guilt rarely helps us improve. Most of the time, guilt leads to avoidance. We feel bad, so we stop trying. What if we replaced guilt with curiosity? Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" we could ask, "What can I change next time?" That small shift changes everything. Imagine two people who both stop working on a goal. The first person decides that stopping means they are weak. They feel ashamed and give up completely. The second person accepts the pause. They reflect calmly. They restart with a simpler plan. Over time, the second person becomes stronger. Not because they never fall, but because they always return. This is resilience. Resilience is not the absence of failure. It is the ability to continue after failure. A helpful way to build this mindset is through conditional thinking. For example, if I treat mistakes as lessons, I can improve. If I allow myself to restart, I don't lose progress. If I stop judging myself, I create space for growth. These ideas sound simple, but they are very powerful when practiced regularly. They turn setbacks into stepping stones. Many successful people have failed more times than we realize. The difference is not talent. The difference is not luck. The difference is response. They fall. They learn. They continue. They understand something important. Effort does not disappear because of a mistake. Experience remains. Learning remains. Even confidence, although shaken, can return stronger. So the next time something doesn't go as planned, pause. Before judging yourself, take a breath. Ask, what is this experience teaching me? Remember this. Stopping is not the opposite of success. Quitting is. And even quitting is sometimes temporary. Real progress belongs to people who keep coming back. Not perfectly, not quickly, but honestly and patiently. A gentle challenge for the new year. Now I want to offer you a gentle challenge for the new year. Not a strict rule. Not a long list of promises. And definitely not something that adds pressure to your life. This challenge is simple. It is flexible. It is personal. It is designed to support you, not to test you. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You are simply invited to choose one small commitment that feels honest and possible for you. When people hear the word challenge, they often imagine something intense or demanding. But real change does not need extremes. In fact, extremes often push us away from consistency. So let go of the idea that improvement must be dramatic. You don't have to change everything. You don't have to become a completely new person. You can begin exactly where you are, with what you have, in the life you are already living. This challenge is about choosing one small action that matters to you and repeating it gently. It might be listening to English for 10 minutes a day, writing a few sentences in a journal, going for a short walk, stretching in the morning, turning your phone off earlier at night. The action itself is not the most important thing. The intention behind it is. Choose something that supports the person you want to become, not the person you think you should be. Remind yourself, this is not a contract. It is a conversation with yourself. You may miss a day. That's okay. You don't need to restart the entire year because of one mistake. You can simply continue the next day. Progress does not disappear because of a pause. It continues as soon as you return. Personal responsibility does not mean pressure. It means awareness and choice. You are responsible for your actions, but you do not need to punish yourself to improve. You can encourage yourself instead. Ask, what would help me continue today? Instead of, why am I not doing enough? This change in language changes how growth feels. It becomes supportive, not heavy. You may notice resistance. That is normal. Resistance does not mean you are on the wrong path. Often, it means you are touching something important. When resistance appears, don't fight it aggressively. Notice it. Adjust if needed. And keep going. If a habit feels too hard, make it smaller. If your energy is low, reduce the effort, but keep the intention. This is how progress stays alive. This year does not need perfect plans or strong motivation. It needs honesty. It needs patience. And it needs small actions that you can return to again and again. You may not see big results right away. That is normal. But something will change. You will feel more connected to your goals. You will feel more capable. And most importantly, you will begin to trust yourself more. So here is the gentle challenge. Choose one small commitment that you can keep on most days. Not every day, just most days. Let it grow naturally. You don't have to rush. You don't have to push. You can start today. You can start slowly. And you do not need to do it perfectly. Just begin. Let consistency do the rest. As we come to the end of this episode, let's slow down and return to something simple and honest. New Year's resolutions often sound loud at the beginning of January. They're full of big promises and strong words. But real change is usually quiet. It does not announce itself. It grows quietly in small moments that are repeated over time. That is why progress matters more than promises. Promises are emotional. Progress is practical. And most importantly, progress is real. Progress requires patience. Not the kind of patience that waits without action, but the kind that continues without panic. Many people quit because they expect results too quickly. When improvement does not appear fast enough, doubt enters the mind. Trust begins to disappear. But meaningful change takes time. Skills grow slowly. Confidence is built through experience. Habits need repetition. When you accept this natural rhythm, you stop fighting time and start working with it. Self-trust plays a powerful role in long-term change. Trust grows when you keep small promises to yourself. Not perfect promises. Realistic ones. Each time you show up, Even in a small way, you strengthen the belief that you can rely on yourself. And when you trust yourself, motivation becomes less important. You do not move forward because you feel excited every day. You move forward because you know who you are becoming. It is also important to remember this. Your path does not need to look like anyone else's. Progress is personal. Some weeks will feel strong and focused. Other weeks will feel slow or uncertain. That does not mean you are moving backward. It means you are human. Long-term change is not about avoiding difficult moments. It is about staying connected to your intention during them. As you continue into this year, try to shift your attention away from big promises and towards small actions. Ask yourself this simple question often. What is one small thing I can do today that supports my growth? This question removes pressure. It invites responsibility. It keeps you present instead of overwhelmed by the future. You do not need to be perfect to move forward. You do not need to feel confident every day. You only need to be honest with yourself and patient with the process. Over time, these qualities create stability. And stability is what allows growth to last. Before we close, take a quiet moment. Do not think about everything you want to achieve. Instead, think about who you want to become through your actions, habits, and choices. So here is the final question to carry with you, gently and without pressure. What kind of person do you want to be this year? Not perfectly, but honestly. Thank you for spending this time with me on Super English Talks. Keep moving forward, one small step at a time.